Hey everyone, Mark from Haunted Auckland and Paranormal New Zealand here. Welcome to episode 8 of Outside the Box, and for today's episode we are going to be talking to a few of the members of Pandora's Jar Paranormal in Los Angeles, California. How's it going?
Hello?
We're all wearing our glasses today.
Hi!
We made it!
Yay!
Hey guys!
Hi.
We're having a few technical difficulties, I think. Good to see you all online. How are you all?
Good, how are you?
Not too bad, not too bad. We're just chilling out in lockdown over here in New Zealand, so not doing a hell of a lot, really. How about you guys?
Yeah, we're in lockdown until at least May 15th.
May 15th?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's what they're saying, so we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. Hopefully it'll be over by then, but we'll see.
Yeah. It's pretty rough. It gives us a chance to get into our research, though, eh?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Different experiences since being on lockdown.
Yeah. Well, that's why I'm doing this little
Yeah,
blog, I decided to get creative and productive and just sort of, because I couldn't go out and do investigations anymore, I just thought I'd hang out with some of the other paranormal groups around the world and see what you guys are doing and talk to other researchers and just carry on the networking, and stay productive. I think it's important.
Definitely
So,
important.
Pandora's Jar Paranormal. That's a great name. I like it. Who came up with that?
Amy?
Well, yeah, it was. There's a few names burning around, and that one just seemed to be most appropriate with the direction we were headed in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how many
That's what
people
it's
in the
like
team?
for us. I think right now we're at. I'm trying to think. We've had some flex lately, so I think we're at let's see, 5. So there's 4 women and 1 gentleman.
People come and people
And
go.
we have some people who are contributors here and there, people that we work with. We have a team of authors, one of whom is an archaeologist, and we have a woman who's not only a medium, but she's also a psychologist, and she does a lot of work on death and dying, so that's how she crosses over.
Cool. And is there any sort of one sort of specific element of the paranormal that you guys specialize in? Or do you just cover the whole, anything that comes along?
Well, I'll go ahead.
Well, it started out that way. It started out of we're all mediums. We're all, we all have had psychic experiences. And so it started out that way, but anything happens, so anything goes. And so we've had a lot of, especially whether you're doing a spirit circle or you're over at someone's house trying to figure out what's going on, or you're just helping out with whatever their issue turns out to be. It's never just one thing. That's the one thing that we've discovered. But yeah, it's that's what keeps it exciting. You should never know what direction it's gonna take.
And my family and we have ghosts in our house for years, and the team came over and we had a blast with all the ghosts that are in my house. So we've seen a lot, banging doors. I've seen men walking down my hallway, little kids. It's been quite exciting. They're kind of part of our life now, and we actually really like it. And my kids enjoy it too.
Yeah.
So a lot of crazy activity.
Yeah. How many times have we been to your house now, Pamela?
Oh my gosh, I think 3.
I'm trying to. Yeah, it's been like
3.
Yeah, it's been more. Like if you include all the times that just Amy and I came over, I think it'd be like 6 times now.
Right. Oh, that's true. Right.
We did our Paranormal Tea podcast there.
Yeah.
How does that work with you all being mediums? Is there any clashing or difference of ideas, or do you sort of all seem to tune into the same thing?
I think there's definitely a difference of ideas, which is good because it provides a wider range of coverage. We do have a lot of overlap, but I actually prefer that we come at it from different angles, because we might not pick up everything that there is going on in the landscape. So the more angles we can approach the investigation from, moving into treatment, I think the more comprehensive the whole process is for us, and for the clients involved.
Yeah, definitely. We had one team member who's no longer with us, but she was especially tuned into children, and children just followed her everywhere. And we were always like, did you bring those with you, or were they here at the location? And so that was something that we always had to sort through with her. And then we had another former team member who recently passed away, but she was really turned into energies that weren't of this earthly reality. And so that was one of the energies at Pamela's house too, that thing in your backyard. And so it was weird, because as soon as she tuned into it, she was like, here, and she and I went off together, and then I could pick up on it. So it was really interesting.
Oh, cool. Because there was a couple of the questions I was going to ask you guys about was, what do you think about spirit attachments, and can spirits follow you home, and all those sorts of things?
Well, actually, I have a story about that, which is interesting. We've had spirits come through my kids telling us stuff. One time when my daughter Melinda was 6, we were going to go to Big Bear, but we weren't leaving till like 5 at night when I got off work. And during the day, she called her dad over and said, Daddy, something's wrong with this tire. And my husband looked at it and said, honey, there's nothing wrong with this tire. She goes, no, there is something wrong with this tire, Daddy. She wouldn't give up on it. So that night when we were driving to Big Bear, right before we entered the steep incline, the tire blew. So my husband told me what happened. It was the same tire. So then we asked Melinda, do you remember telling Daddy about the tire today? And she's like, no. I said, you don't remember telling Daddy? And she's like, no. So I think somebody was warning us and went through my daughter.
Right.
Interesting. That was very interesting, because it was right before we headed up the steep incline.
Yeah,
so
that would have been not great.
No, plus it was starting to get dark. Yeah, it wouldn't have been good. So that was very interesting. And then my daughter Rihanna, I had a little girl in my house that used to play hide and go seek with me, and my daughter was sitting on the floor, and she went to call our dog, which is Tabitha, and out of the blue she yells, Abigail, and I looked at her and she started laughing. And she's like, who's Abigail? She didn't know anything about our ghost at that time, because she was younger and I didn't want to spook her. So I thought, okay, she's Abigail. So those were a couple experiences we've had where they've gone through my kids.
I think we confirmed that later on in a spirit circle at your house too, didn't we, Pamela? That
yeah,
her name was
we
Abigail?
did.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
So I was
just to jump in there, just to answer your question, Mark, we definitely believe in spirit attachments. I think I can speak for everybody. But more often, we have to kind of watch out for a bit of spirit possession when we're investigating. Like GeeDee was mentioning, one of our past team members, she actually unfortunately passed away recently. So it's been a bit of a challenging moment for us all as a team, but she would often have the unfortunate circumstance of getting possessed by spirits sometimes when we would investigate and treat a location. And part of that, I believe, is in theory due to her also being an active channeler, because it seems like when someone has an intention to move into channeling, whether as a hobby or a side profession or, for professional reasons. They rewire their energetic structure, which makes it easier for things to jump in, because that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to be an instrument for a voice to come through. The challenge is how to, structure that so you don't have stuff jumping in that you don't want entering your body. So it's a little bit tricky, and she was working with that, trying to attenuate that process right before she passed. But yeah, absolutely, we do believe in spirit possession. We've seen a lot of it. We've treated some of it, and I've seen in my own personal journey, I've seen some interesting stuff. So yeah, definitely, it's something that we need to watch out for collectively.
Cool.
Yeah, I think we captured.
Sorry, Karen.
I think we captured 2 of those incidents on video, right, Amy?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was trippy.
Yeah. It's something I'm learning about as I go, because I don't know too much about the whole sort of medium side of things, and attachments and the more spiritual side, I guess. I have a lot of items in this room here which have been given to me, passed on to me from people that are meant to be haunted and cursed and all that kind of thing.
Very cool.
So I keep in this one room. This is my haunted room.
That's in your house?
This is my house, yeah. A lot of these things, like, I've got Chucky dolls, that's not haunted. That's just my,
very cool.
But I've got lots
This
of
is just for decoration.
There's lots of...
Love that.
I love it. I still have Halloween stuff in my house right now.
Yeah, I see that.
We love Halloween. We love Halloween.
Yeah.
Pamela's house is known as the Halloween house.
That's why I look forward to going back over to the States, because you guys celebrate Halloween so well, and all the shops have got, all the pop-up stores there. That just
You guys don't
come
celebrate?
out when I have our party, because we do the whole inside of our house. It's crazy.
Yeah,
it takes us 3 months.
Her husband and her son really get into just creating all these crazy decorations, and it's amazing.
Yeah, I love it.
But in New Zealand,
really
you guys
well.
don't celebrate like that? Do you guys get dressed up, or do the
We
kids
do.
go out? Or?
We do. Not as big as in the States, but we do in our little way. But most of the good props I've got here, like this guy here, they all come from the States, They're from the pop-up stores there, and
Yeah, it's a big money-making engine, Halloween is, for our country, because we've got all the horror films, we've got all the TV shows, got the supernatural, we've got the big commercial engine, we've got some shops that have costumes that are open year-round, Halloween costume shops.
Really?
And then for all of the Halloween candy and everything what's that? Yeah, no, I was going to say, yeah, it's really intense. There's some good commercial Halloween love going on in this country.
Well, and there's also
popping up in stores by September.
Oh yeah.
Go ahead, GeeDee.
Yeah, the Halloween Club is open year round down by Orange County.
Halloween Club.
Dawn and I go down there a lot.
And Halloween Town. And then there's the film studios. You have all the guys all the people who work in props and special effects. And so all over the valley, most of them live in the valley. They'll do like an amateur haunted house, but it's like not amateur at all. And so some of them will set up a haunted house in their yard, and then all the money goes to charity, or they'll partner with some of the charter schools, so the charter schools can make money. And those are pretty good.
Yeah.
And so there's a list that comes out, I think it comes out at the end of August, so you can plan your tour and do your whole thing. And and the haunted hayride happens too in Old Griffith Park. So
you guys do everything so big and wonderful,
Well, next time when you come over.
That's America for you.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm trying to work it out so that my itinerary can be full of like Bigfoot conferences and paranormal conferences, and I can just travel across the States going to conferences,
sure.
But they're all sort of scattered out throughout the whole year, so you can't sort of find a time to, fill it with everything. But another question. Paranormal TV. Do you think it's a help or a hindrance to the paranormal research field?
We have some thoughts about that, but Pamela is our local expert. She watches all the shows.
So she's an expert.
Love Supernatural. It's such a good show.
Yeah.
And so was Vampire Diaries. I love vampire movies. Lost Boys, Fright Night. Yeah.
We actually
it's all fun.
We actually
But,
think that
Paranormal field. Ghost Adventures,
with
Most Haunted.
Supernatural, the writing and research team that McGee and his team put together, it's recycled. And in LA, a lot of people want to get on that show, and because that's it, your resume is done once you've been on that show.
Really?
And and what has happened is it's been sort of like a paranormal or magical incubator, whereas like all the storylines that have come out on that show, because they were trying to kill that show for like I think 6-7 years, the last 6-7 seasons, and but the incubator, out of the research that has gone on that show, so many people have such a wealth of knowledge now that they are really sought after for any other paranormal show, because they have all the research and they have all the stuff that's been done. So allegedly, they've collected a ton of magical texts and research and analysis on different magical things. So whether you're talking about Dean Kelly or Aleister Crowley and that whole scene, or Doc Parsons and what was going on at the parsonage and all of this kind of stuff, those people and they go to cocktail parties all over town and talk about it. So it's really interesting what has come out of that. And but as far as like paranormal TV shows like Ghost Hunters, on the one hand, it's exploded the field. On the other hand, I think we did a podcast all about this, right, Amy? About like you guys.
It's a bit like the blind leading the blind, unfortunately, with a lot of the shows, because they follow a particular format meant more for ratings than for educating the community. And so when we have more of a bias towards ratings, it becomes more commercialized and less about actually helping the clients that are experiencing paranormal activity. And there's a big movement that's been happening within the paranormal community. People kind of fed up about it being, the shows just being more so exploitative than educational, because we've all seen the same thing over and over again. So the arc has been like from ghosts to possessions to now everything's demonic. So you're not getting good ratings unless everything you encounter on your show, episode to episode, is demonic. And as mediums, we just don't find that to be the case. However, it may be statistically, if you're going to the most, really, really dark, haunted places where there's just a lot of really bad stuff that took place on that land or wherever, you might get a higher statistical rate of negative stuff happening because you're only going to the most intense places. However, that each place being demonic with demonic activity, I don't think so. It's really, really more on the rare side. And a lot of people don't like to come forward with that. They prefer to go see a priest, a church, somebody spiritual to assist them with their problems. So that's the big frustration that we have, that our team has, is that we would like the shows to be more educational than exploitative. Definitely. If I could speak for everybody. Sorry.
Yeah, because I mean, honestly, stuff with demons is extremely rare. True demon activity. And if you have a demon in your house or attached to someone, you're not just getting up and going to work every day like things are going, like your life is really messed up. Something is really wrong, and it's been wrong for a while. And the other thing we find is that, every culture, every subculture deals with this stuff differently. But in general, they have the same stuff that they're dealing with. They might call it something different. They might have different rituals in order to deal with it. But what we find is like there's no culture that doesn't have some aspect of dealing with the paranormal.
That's right. Doesn't matter where you are in the world, even those remote little islands that don't have television, movies, internet, or books, they still see ghosts. They still make, there's still claims of ghosts and stories that date way back. So everybody experiences them.
That too, and then there's more than one way to do an exorcism. You know, it's
Right.
not just with Catholic priests. And, you know, there are many, many countries out there that have their own format, their own approach to performing exorcisms. And that's also something that we'd love to educate the community about, the paranormal community, because the only thing that's getting pushed into mainstream here in the United States is Catholic exorcisms.
Right.
And we've got the Southern Belt, they do it their own way. And then when you start to dig into other countries, other people, we've got a lot of, magicians who do their own form of exorcisms. And, even in the Muslim world, we have priests that are performing exorcisms for, people in the Middle East. So it's all over, and it's, there's a lot of variety out there. It just doesn't get showcased on mainstream television.
Especially when you get into native cultures. I know New Zealand with a Maori family had one of the most famous cases of they were trying to get rid of a water demon possession. Do you know about that case?
Vaguely, yes.
Yeah,
I remember that one.
That was awful.
Yeah.
But when you I had a discussion with somebody and they were like, I can't believe that family did that. I'm like, well, what else? What were they supposed to do? How would you have liked it to have been handled? Should they have gone to a medical doctor? Should they have gone to a Catholic priest? Should they have gone to the police? Like, how would you have liked that family to handle their problem that no one even believed they were having? So that's when you get into some gray areas, and and it's helpful if there's open communication and transparent communication, because so many people feel like they're going to be judged, or like, and we have to sit there and tell people, like, no judgment, blank canvas, open book, just tell us what you think is going on, tell us what you've been actually experiencing. And they're like, and they always start out with like, okay, this is going to sound crazy, but we're like, let's go.
Yeah, true. So, okay, what was the first case you guys ever took on as this team?
I think it was Pamela's house. Was it Pamela's house?
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we
And
heard about this.
what's the location that you've had the most activity or occurrences happen at while you've been there?
I would say that Pamela's house definitely has a ton of activity. Always, there's always activity going on.
Yeah.
There's always the hallway.
It's the hallway. But you know what? I know that some other people, when we first came over to your house to investigate, after Amy and I had been there, I know that especially those other two people really freaked out and were affected, right? But I've never felt anything, like, I never felt threatened. I never felt anything negative or harming at your house.
Yes, we've never felt anything. I just always feel like it's my relatives or people passing through. Never anything negative.
Yeah.
My precious moments are still moving. They like to play with my precious moments, so I find them turned around and all
Just
over
your little
the place.
statuary, the little figures.
My little statues. Yeah.
To clarify that.
And I have a castle collection, and they play with that too.
But that's what I'm saying. It's always been like, we have found some negative things in her house. There was a guy who, there was a girl who had been killed, and then her murderer had later been killed, and he followed her into the house and was hiding in one of their
my Jason. It was Jason from Friday the 13th.
And he was attracted to that because it was scary. And so this girl was really, she was like, I thought I would have escaped him. So neither one of them could cross over, but we were able to coax her out and cross her over, and then we banished him. I don't think he crossed over. I think we banished him from your house. So I don't know where he went, but I still wasn't afraid of him, So it's, and then what we came to find out is that Pamela has a lost child, and we came to find out that she was inviting people to Pamela's house, like, my mom will help you, she'll protect you. That was interesting too. Yeah.
Well, that's the other thing that's kind of a misnomer with investigating, is that just because you've got a lot of paranormal activity doesn't mean the intention of whatever's causing that activity is malicious. So, you know, when we were over, remember the two Catholic sisters who had that big Hispanic family. So there was another investigation that we were doing. This is where our team member had passed away. She had gotten possessed. You know, they were the matriarchs for a lot of people who lived under one roof. And over a period of 10 years, several of those family members had passed away for different reasons. And but they, instead of crossing over, they were hanging out in the house, and they were trying to communicate and causing all this activity. And it was spooking the sisters. They didn't know what was going on because there was too much to sort through. So when we were investigating, we were able to do a spirit circle to try to cross over as many of the deceased family that we could. But we weren't prepared for a deceased neighbor to kind of infiltrate and say, hey, I'm here too. It was this deceased neighbor who ended up, he was a little bit mentally disturbed, it felt like to us, but he ended up jumping into our team member's body and possessing her body and trying to speak through her, because maybe that was the thing that he thought would be the quickest way to get that job done. So stuff like that happens. He wasn't trying to hurt her or try to be malicious. He was just trying to communicate the best way he could. So this is why I'd advocate for mediums to join investigative teams, because there's just so much information that the equipment will not be able to provide for the investigators, you know.
And so like a typical scenario is a local group finds out or has always known about a certain location, and they're like, let's go investigate. So they gather up all their equipment, somehow get in there legally or otherwise, right? With or without permission, they get in there and they start investigating. And they're getting all kinds of hits on their equipment. What is that telling them, right? And so they start asking questions like, maybe on the K2 meter or some other way, they think that they're communicating with something. So they start asking it based on the stories that they've heard. Like, are you the old man that used to own this place? Are you the girl that died here? Whatever. Meanwhile, if you had a medium there, you'd be like, that is not at all what's going on here. You know? And this person is like, you're getting hits on your equipment because this person is talking really fast to you, like, can you help me find the doorway? I'm stuck. Or, you know, is my family okay? Or whatever their concerns are. And meanwhile, the group is getting all this stuff. And so they think that they're communicating with this thing, and that's not what's going on. And, you know, even when you do a spirit circle, if you do it without a medium there, that's where all the negative connotations come in, right? You don't know what doors you're opening. You don't know who you're really talking to. This is another big pet peeve with us, is like, nobody has done any cleansing or protective protocols. And if you do connect with someone, right, that person is trying to talk to you, and then everyone, we got to go home now, and then they just pack up and leave. And then that person is standing there like, wait, I thought you were going to help me. So,
and the doorway's still open. Yeah. Right.
So, yeah, we just have, I don't want to say issues, but we just have cleansing and protection is our big thing. That's yeah.
And like, speaking of equipment and gadgets and things, what do you think is the most overrated piece of equipment that's out on the market today that everyone's using?
GeeDee?
Yeah,
I know what I think.
Well, as mediums, we are the equipment. So,
yeah.
But for the people that we work with, they want to see something or hear something, and I see, I know that people have a lot of apps that are spirit communicating apps, and I'm really suspicious of those because they can. How have they been programmed? What is the vocabulary that's been programmed into there? And when it's doing, you know, the Frank's box, I had experience with an actual one of the original Frank's box with Keith Moon and Chip Coffey at the Estes Park. So, you know, it was really interesting. I had active communication with my dad, who passed in 1981. It was my dad. It was his voice. It was his way of talking. He gave me some messages, and then he peaced out. But so those are really interesting. But I don't know, like the spirit box apps, I think are really suspicious. And I have, I've seen videos. I'm not going to call anybody out, but I've seen videos where they're like, oh, this singer who just died last week came and talked to me on this my spirit box app that you should buy. And it was like, no, that did not happen.
Yeah.
And also, we're in LA. We know people who know people, and if that recently dead singer came back to talk to anybody, it probably would not be you, sir.
Yeah.
And and I strongly suspect, there's so many pieces of interviews that are out there that can be cut and pasted and put together to mean something or say something, and then what you hear on these apps is so distorted. I'm suspicious of all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Although I do have one of those apps, so I think they're entertaining. But as far as actual communication or evidence that you can put into your evidence bank, no.
It's all about
don't get us wrong,
experimentation,
we
isn't it?
love
It's all
the
about
gear,
experimentation and trying things, and gadgets come and go, and you try them out and toss them away if they're no good. But it's about experimentation.
You can go broke. You can go broke doing all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I know that Billy from Digital Dowsing, he'll build you anything you want him to build you if you pay him, but he will also tell you that he doesn't even believe in the other side. He doesn't believe in any of this. Okay.
And one important tip. Have you got one important tip from each of you guys for anybody starting out new in this field? One important tip they should know.
Pamela, what's an
One important tip?
For anybody starting off, yeah.
Well, because I have a lot of family that come through, people are afraid, and if you just open yourself up, they come to you with either a song on the radio, just any kind of symbol. And like for instance, I had surgery, and when I was coming out of the anesthesia, I was all of a sudden, this candy called No Jellies popped into my head. And I'm like, No Jellies? Where did I get that? And that was a candy that my grandmother, when I was little, I would go spend a week with them, and we'd lay on the couch and watch old movies, and we'd eat No Jellies. And they're basically Reese's peanut butter cups, but they were called No Jelly. So I knew my grandma was with me, because there's just little messages, and it's really reassuring, and I love hearing from them. So if people just pay attention and open themselves to it, it's great, really.
Yeah. You other guys?
Amy?
GeeDee. Oh, okay. I was thinking about as that. I'm like, well, okay, let me just go through all the things that I would recommend. I think the biggest one that I see is for a lot of investigators migrating into the voice boxes and formats where they're actually trying to actively communicate through devices. What I want to recommend to them is that it doesn't matter if it's a box with batteries, if it's a Ouija board, if it's a digital voice recorder, wherever you are at, where you set the intention to connect with the other side, you are effectively opening up a doorway. So if you keep doing that, eventually stuff is going to come in that you may or may not want in your space. So if you get to that point, or you feel like you're getting to that point, you need to add some spiritual protocols, some other kind of buffer, so that you don't take stuff home with you, you don't have open doorways all over the place, you're not just arbitrarily inviting stuff in because now you're a bright, beacon of light, and anything on the street, can come in because they can see you and they're interested. That's from the medium side, that's what that process does, and it starts with the intention to connect and communicate with the other side. So that's why we see a lot of investigators running into really big challenges where they go and investigate and then they come home and all sorts of weird stuff starts happening. So there are a lot of stories like that. So I would just encourage everybody to think twice about how they're going about their protocols with their gear nowadays. And if they're doing more mediumship work with communicating with the other side than actually, investigating in prior ways, then it would benefit them to consider a spiritual protocol for protection measures.
Definitely. I think that cleansing, protection, and intention, because what people don't understand is this is mediumship. Whether you don't have natural ability, right? What you're doing is with your gear, you're activating mediumship. You're trying to communicate with something that's on the other side, or with something that's no longer in a body or was never in a body. And so there has to be cleansing and protection protocols before you go in, after once you shut down, and there has to be intention. Like, what is your intention? Because a lot of these people, like, are ghost hunters. They're hunting the ghost. They're gonna catch it. Well, what's your plan when you catch it?
I know.
Yeah. And I think that and making sure that everybody on your team is of one heart, one mind. Because if you have someone if you go into an investigation and you're engaging in some tug of war with the who's in charge or how it should be done and that kind of stuff, call off your investigations. Make sure you guys are of one heart or one mind, because what you may encounter is going to use that against you.
Yeah. Cool. And one last one. Preferred late night investigation snacks. What's the essentials?
Water and a protein shake.
Water and a protein shake. For an all-nighter.
You have to keep your vitality up.
True.
I see investigators go in there all hopped up on sugar.
Yeah.
Yeah, not good. Not good. You want to go in with some good grounding. I prefer to eat a hearty meal before I go out, because I need the fuel, because I'll burn it up really quickly, and then I actually bring the snacks with me, and they're just good wholesome snacks that's going to provide protein, fat, starch, some mainstaying power. I actually, we've talked about this on one of our other podcasts. A really good thing that I recommend for investigation recovery is homemade broth, like chicken broth, beef broth, because it just provides a relaxation in the intestinal tract. It's, a lot of the components of chickens are used in muscle relaxers medication. So there's an actual something at work there. But what the broth does is it's a restorative. It calms the nervous system, warms everything, because usually you're out in the cold investigating. So think of things along that way of, mainstaying power and restorative power.
Wow, you guys really get into it, don't you?
Yeah, we do.
Everything. Every angle. That's amazing. Okay, well, we've got about a minute left, so I'm going to have to round this one up. I'd really like to talk some more at some other stage. It's really quite cool, actually.
Well, you should come on our podcast.
Yeah, why not? I've got all this free time now, so why not?
I know.
Yeah, we would love it.
No, we'll do that.
Tell us what's going on down under.
Yeah, that's right. Well, there's not a lot at the moment, but yeah, I got lots of questions. I got more questions now than I had when I was a kid, so.
Oh, good.
Okay, guys, we'll leave it at that for now, and we'll catch up later on. Thanks a lot.
Stay safe,
and,
New Zealand.
Thank you.
I'll put a link to your page and everything on the end of this video, and we'll stay in touch, okay? And let us know if you find anything great and what's happening over there and any big news. Just keep in touch, okay?
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Talk soon, eh?
Bye.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye. See ya.